All right, guys, we got Doom Speaker,
Ah, man of the
the
hour.
3/4 for 3. He's one of the most powerful, I think, 3 drops in the game, and in the neutral common area. So, what do you think about this card?
I think I gotta give him a 4.
A 4?
Um,
Yeah.
as vanilla as he is, those stats are great. They're a premium stat line for the cost, and there aren't a whole lot of premium stat line for the cost cards in this game at all. So the fact that this guy the fact that he's free, like at the free slot, the fact that he's only 3 mana, you get him down early and start taking over the board, the fact that he'll probably trade for 2 of your opponent's cards, I gotta say 4.
You think a 4?
Yeah,
I'm trying to think of
I
how
think
many other
I think
cards
it's
I would
pretty
take over
solid.
this. I mean, I think I would probably mark him at the same level as like Brontis, but a little bit better. So, like
I mean,
probably,
well, we have Brontes as a 3.5, right?
yeah. I think that's probably fair. I think around a 4. Sometimes guys stat 6 are just the best, and this is one of those cases.
Especially in arena. In constructed, it's a little different when you can like reliably hit your synergies. But in arena, when you don't know what you're drawing, you can't have your deck that consistent because you don't have a whole lot of two ofs. This guy stands up on his own, and that's a very important thing for a card to do.
Yeah, not when you guys play this on 3, nothing's challenging it on the board almost ever.
Yeah, you would have to be on the draw, and your opponent would have had to have a hyena and have it grow twice, basically,
Yeah.
or drop a Brontes and then play a god afterwards, which is not going to happen all the time. And if you see a Brontes, by the way, and you have a Doomspeaker in your hand, play your Doomspeaker behind your core. Like, don't take the chance that you might just lose the game on the spot if they manage to buff their Brontes there.
All right, let's move on to the next one. Dune Guardian.
Mm. The only deck, maybe
Maybe Hindu too.
actually I was gonna say Hindu would be the only one,
Oh, not Raw.
and maybe also Ra. Yeah, I think getting this guy to trigger in Hindu is first of all much easier, and you can do it much more quickly. If you've got like 3 pillars and they all hit a heal, like on your core or whatever, that's 3 triggers. Whereas Raw, you gotta like line your minions up, you gotta spend your 2 mana, you gotta jump through all these hoops to get a buff or two. I think this is much better in Hindu than it is in Egypt. Um, but even that being said, I probably only draft him as a 2.5 in Hindu.
Gotcha. I mean, he is a 4/6 at the common slot, um, for 5 mana, which actually isn't that bad. And then I think in certain decks he gets a lot better. I would say he's like 2.5 at the most, probably 2. With the caveat that like in Hindu or Raw, where you can get a little bit more value for him, he might be a little bit higher. But yeah, I agree with you. He's not great.
Yeah, I feel like even in Raw, he's only a 6/6. Like on you play him on 5, you attack on 6 as a 6/6, and you have to spend 2 mana to do it most of the time. And I feel
Yeah,
like that's really not better than a 2.5. In
I
Hindu, when you can get it triggered passively, I think it's probably a 3. But I
the problem is
I
his health doesn't even grow, and that's really the issue here, guys. He
yeah,
doesn't even survive. So like even if you get this nice beastly minion for 5 mana, it dies pretty easily still. Um,
right. You might think there's a comparison to be made to Chieftain, but he's actually much worse than Chieftain.
yeah, I agree. All right, so we have Elder Harpy is the next card.
This guy.
I think this one is like solidly right in the middle of all the cards. At a pretty solid 3. He's a 3/2. You play him, he gets you value. He draws you a card right when he comes down, and he's a beast.
I give him a 3.5. I think he trades and he gets you a card. I think that's exactly what value is. I think that's exactly what you want to be doing, and it's got to be at least a 3.5. I think.
All right. There's not much to say about this card, guys. It does what it says, and it's not bad. Fenway?
Fenway, 6/2. It's important that he's ranged. So he basically gets to dodge your opponent's melee and your opponent's spells, which is 2 of the 3 angles that they can attack you from. That's a powerful effect. The fact that he only has 2 health, if you don't have control of the board when you just can't play him. You can't. If you try to play this guy while your opponent has board presence near your core, you're probably just going to lose the game because they're going to trade very profitably. They're going to continue to advance their board on their turn 5 or their turn 6, and you will not be able to come back from that barring something like Annihilation, which you definitely cannot count on in a draft. So if you have board parity, if you have control of your side of the board, if you have control of their side of the board also, this guy's great. He's a solid backup. He's like the guy you want to call in the cavalry, you call this guy. But
I mean, basically, I heard they're like, if you're already winning the game, he's not too bad
if
to
you're already
play.
winning the game, he's great.
Guys, this card's a nightmare. Like, imagine playing this into Bellona. Like, you play it behind your core, they push it through your core and attack it with their 3-drop. Right? Now you traded your sweet 5-drop for their 3-drop every time. I don't like this card. I don't think this card's that good. You know, there's situations where you'll take it in draft. You know, especially if you are the Bellona player, it gets a little bit better because you can move forward, shoot, and then pull it backwards to keep it alive. But the 2 toughness is just a little bit too little.
Yeah.
If he was a 6-3, this card is astronomically better than it is now.
Even if he was a 5-3.
There's not many rares I'm gonna take like this
Well, so
over.
you're saying like 1.5?
I mean,
This is a bold claim.
oh man, like probably like a 2 at the most.
I think 2.5.
I don't even no. At least
I
like a 2 probably.
I tend to draft the early stat sticks, so I tend to not lose the board too terribly by turn 4 or 5.
I don't like this card.
So
There's much better
if you
things to do
can-
with your rares.
If you can resolve him in a spot where he doesn't die immediately, then he really can do some work. So I'll say that.
Giving him a 2.
All right, fine, 2.
Fire Giant, guys. The thing to remember about this is they removed his attacks hit adjacent enemies in this last patch. So.
Okay, no more cleave for the Fire Giant. I think he's still probably a 4.
Yeah, I would agree.
He's incredibly overstated.
I mean, I don't think he's really overstated. A lot of people try to like combine the 2 ones into his stats and call him like a 9-10, but that's not really the case at all. He really comes into play and does 4 damage to a guy, is what happens here, guys, or 4 damage to your opponent's score.
That's totally worth it for 8 mana.
I mean, it might very well be worth it for 8 mana, but the
That's
comparison
like better than a 9-10.
I don't know, man.
A 5-8 that comes into play for 8 mana kills a guy or 2 guys, and is still a 5-8 afterwards is so much better than a 9-10. A 9-10 gets executed, 9-10 gets decayed, a 9-10 gets mind controlled by well, he's not a god, so no. But a 9-10 gets bounced back to your hand by Hebo or Astral Projection or whatever. A 5-8 that comes into play and kills a guy is much better.
Thinking 4? Pretty solid 4 in the legendary slot?
Definitely a 4. I'll give him a 4.5 even. There's not a whole lot of legendaries I want to take over Fire Giant.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's a lot of times you're looking at like 3 legendaries and one of them's Fire Giant and you're like, yeah, that's the one.
Right. Yep.
Fire Imp.
I hate drafting this card.
Yeah, I'm with you. Very rarely will I ever draft this card if I really need that early 2-drop. Maybe we'll take
you don't
it.
Want him as a 2-drop.
But
you play this card as a removal spell to help finish off a damaged minion that you couldn't quite kill with your first card.
He's good at killing Hyena. That's about all I got.
Yeah. 1.5.
Like 1.5. All right, that seems fair.
1.5.
Surprised
Like
you gave him that.
he never trades up ever.
All right, Fury.
Actually impossible for him to trade up. Fury.
What do you mean? He could trade up into Elder Heartbeat every time.
That's not a trade up. They got a card and you didn't. You're trading down.
Fair enough.
So Fury is immune to return damage. Fury is good when you need a top end, you don't have a lot of choices, you're late in the draft, and you're kind of just grasping. It can be very powerful in the right situation, but so can a lot of cards. What we're looking for to give a card a high ranking is that it's very valuable in a wide variety of situations, because in draft you're going to see a wide variety of situations. Any cards that can be very good but only sometimes shouldn't be very highly ranked, because if you don't hit that situation and you have this card in your hand, you're going to be in a really bad spot. You're going to lose the game real fast. So for that reason, I probably give Fury a 2.
Really, I think Fury is a very solid 3. The fact that she's immune to return damage is pretty sweet. 6 mana for 6/6 isn't too bad. It does have the beast tag.
I think you overvalue that beast tag.
Hey man, it's a thing, and I think it gets even better if you're Bellona or you're Odin. This card starts becoming very powerful very quickly.
If you're Bellona, she's better. Yes.
So I give this card a pretty solid 3. This card can definitely change a game into your favor when you play it.
I don't know, man. I feel like she just gets traded into when you play her.
I mean, yeah, but sometimes that is the case, and they'll like sacrifice 3 guys into your 6 drop, but that's fine. Other times you play her and like you attack into a guy who's of equal value, and that's insane. So if you're on the play particularly, you play this on 6 and your opponent's like 6 just kind of looks not so good.
Yeah, I mean, if you can get an attack off with Fury, she's amazing. But
Yeah.
that's why I was talking about situationally good cards. Because if you can't get an attack off, or if you're not in a position where if you have to play her behind your core, then you're gonna have to try and run up. Then your opponent can get an attack on her before you can get the attack off. She just sits behind your core for a while, doesn't really do much, so you're not really doing anything with your turn 6 while your opponent's continuing to develop. I
I think you almost just jam
I
this
can't rate
card
it
in front
that
of your
high.
core, and what happens happens. This card is good. I think it's a 3.
All right, let's go to the next one.
Gallus. Adjacent
Gaius.
friendlies have immune to enemy spells.
I really like this guy actually. Um, he the stats are okay. They like help you stop the aggro. They don't trade particularly well against other cards at the same cost, but the immunity to spells really just stops your opponent from messing with you. He's not someone that I want to play on curve on 4. He's someone that I want to play after I've stuck a minion like a stone thrower, after I've stuck a minion like my baboon, after I've stuck, maybe my Oogway while I'm leaving it in the back to grow or something. That's when I want to play my Gaius. I want to sit him down there in front of those guys. I want to block for them with his body, and I want to block for spells with his effect. Um, I think I give him a 3.5.
Yeah, I mean pretty easily. This is the card you went over Fenway every time. Um,
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
a 2/6, which I actually don't think that's that bad of a deal for 4 mana guys. While you're saying he won't trade with mana guys of the same cost, most of the time guys of the same cost of him won't kill him in 1 hit, so he can
oh
get
for
4
sure.
damage off over 2 hits anyway. He's very well statted. A lot of times you don't want to be doing that kind of a situation, but he'll help you live through a lot of problems. That Sweet Annihilation your opponent got, that Blight that they got, doesn't matter so much now. Just keep them tucked into your minions and you're good to go.
Yeah, or if I'm playing Hindu and I've got like a Pillar of Parity and a Pillar of Banishment in my backline or something, just drop a Gaius in front of them. Suddenly my opponent can't make their guys bigger, they can't make their guys move faster, they can't make their banished guy come back, uh, and he doesn't have to do anything else. All he has to do is sit there. You don't have to go on the offensive with him until you're finally ready to. When you have your board control, you want to move up to your opponent's core. You can move your guys with the rest of your dudes, keep your attacking force safe. Especially if your opponent doesn't have any board presence anymore, it's very hard for them to interact you from that point on. You've probably locked up the game.
The one thing I would say is careful about Bellona again. She can rip
Yeah,
him
she'll
away
mess you
and
up.
then do bad things to you. So that
Mm-hmm.
would be the only thing I would say. I think he's probably a pretty solid 3, 3.5.
Yeah, let's say 3.5.
All right, let's go on to the next one. Gladiator.
I love this guy. Uh, the leader ability costing 2 less, getting that for free every turn. That's a lot of free mana that's building up. And even if you can't really value a hero ability at being worth 2 mana when it costs 2 mana, because it's a filler effect and they have to do it for the game to have balance, it's still a lot of mana that stacks up very quickly. Especially when you're playing someone like Nuwa and you need that ping on 4, but you also want to develop your board. Gladiator's great. The fact that he's a 4/4 for 4 is a great stat line to begin with, and you get the hero power that turn, and you get the hero power the subsequent turn while developing a 5-drop. Normally, in the middle of the game, you're not using your hero power because you need to play dudes to have board presence, and that forces you to not use your hero power, or you just get way behind on tempo, and you lose the board and you lose the game. This guy allows you to fight for board, to contest it, and even to help take it over, because hero powers, generally speaking, are geared towards taking over the board. And that makes this guy at least a 4, if not a 4.5. Honestly, I can't actually think of a rare that I would draft. Well, no,
Bludgeon,
that's not
maybe?
true. Yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah,
there's definitely a couple rares I would draft over Gladiator, but he's at least a 4.
I'm gonna agree with you. The way I try to kind of rate hero powers is like, by how many hero powers do I need to like make up a card, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
I think the answer is probably somewhere between 2 and 3, and this guy gets you there. The fact it is an Odin making free 1/1s is pretty insane. Nua getting that free blade every turn is crazy, especially if you have other cards triggering with it. If you want to
He's not as
if
good
you
with
want to play
Hindu.
Zabin Scout into Gladiator, as Odin seems pretty good to me. So
Yeah.
I like this guy. I think he's an easy 4.
What do we got next?
Hive 0.
0. Give it the 0. We'll just move on.
Hyena.
Okay, Hyena. Nope. I don't like him.
I think he's like a 3. He's one of the better 2-drops that you can have.
He's not a 3. He is not a 3 in the rare slot. There are so many rare cards I take over this guy.
All right.
2.
What did we gave Decrepit Bowman like a 2.5 or 2, right? I take him over him sometimes.
2.5. We gave Decrepit Bowman 2.5. All right, so we'll put Hyena at also 2.5, and you can choose between the two of them. If you have a lot of beasts, obviously better.
Yeah.
But I think the number of beasts you need to like be able to reliably play this guy and have a buff or 2 is like 10 beasts in your deck.
It's a lot of Elder Harpies.
Yeah, just draft like 17 Elder Harpies, cycle through your deck, and make your Hyena huge. That's the plan, guys.
If you have some Arachnias already in your deck, guys, premium.
Oh yeah, if you're playing Zeus and you have Arachne, like 2 Arachnes, and you can draft a Hyena, do it.
Imperial Archer.
In China, like a 4, and everywhere else, like a 2.
Yeah, that's what I would go with too. Absolutely. I'm not even sure he's really worth a 4 in China. Maybe 3.5.
That's a little high. I was exaggerating a bit, but 3.5 at least.
But I agree with you. I don't draft this card in almost any deck but China. You're never gonna have enough spells almost to make this worth
and especially
doing.
the 1 damage is just not.
Yeah.
If you're playing like a 5 mana spell in Egypt, like you're playing Book of Thoth or something, and you get 1 extra damage tacked on because you played a 1/3, like, and had it stick, it's not that good. The 1 damage there is not very impactful. When you're playing China, not only does he ping like basically every turn because you're using your hero power whenever you want, it also synergizes with the hero power in addition to that by helping you finish off 2 health dudes with 1 blade. So it's kind of doing double duty there, and that's why it gets ranked so highly.
Yeah, I agree with you. This card is only good in China, is what I would say. Imperial Guard.
Also, probably like a 2.5, and in China like a 4.
I mean, I think my biggest problem with this card is that if you don't have a Gladiator in play, let's say, spending 2 mana to make this guy immune isn't terrible, right? I'm not sure it's sweet either, though. I think he's probably around like a 3 to 4 in China, and then under that, everywhere else.
Yeah, like a 2.5. Like, he's a lot better than Imperial Archer because when you play a spell, he says kill a dude, and that's it. just kill a guy.
But I'm probably even taking Doom Speaker over this card in China.
No.
You don't think so?
Nope.
All right.
Not taking Doomspeaker over this guy in China. Not doing it. Even though Doomspeaker's a 4, still taking Imperial Guard.
I don't know. My deck's always curved. I never have time to make free blades.
But you don't even have to make the blade to make him good, because he's a 2/4 anyway, which means he'll trade into your opponent's 2-drop most of the time just like by itself. You don't need to worry about the return damage. And if you play multiple spells a turn, you can get him up to like 5 attack. He can trade into a Fury, not die. Like, this guy, very versatile.
Oops.
In China, that is. Everywhere else he's like kind of
so many cards.
Whatever. What's going on here?
We ended up skipping like a bunch of cards. Hold on. Where were we before?
Imperial Guard.
There we go.
Okay, here we go. I don't really like Imperial Soldier. I think the fact that his health doesn't increase means that basically you play him in your back line, 3 turns later he comes out and kills a dude. Right? Like, 3 turns later, if you're playing China, the rest of the time he probably doesn't do much at all. But you play him in your back line, after a couple of Crescent Blades, he's like a 4/2, a 5/2. And he's got 3 extra movement. He runs across the entire board, kills one of your opponent's guys, and like that's what he does. And for 2 mana that you have to set up ahead of time, that's not terrible. But your opponent also has to not kill it by then.
Yeah, I think you're probably around a 2. The thing about this card is, guys, though, it's one of the few cards I've ever seen do an OTK in Arena. Out of Odin, where they double damaged him and gave him like a bunch of things like Wind Fury and that like 3+3/1.
You shouldn't get people's hopes up like this.
No, this is the absolute dream situation, guys. This doesn't actually happen. This is why we're rating him like a 2.
Don't draft this card.
But don't draft this card.
It'll be bad like when you draw it. Really.
Yeah. The only situation is maybe China sometimes.
Yeah. Actually, I was rating it a 2 in China. I think everywhere else it's much worse.
Inferno Cannon.
Inferno Cannon. Okay, so this is also one of those cards that gets better depending on the deck you're playing. If you're playing Bologna, it's really good actually. Um, just don't fall into the trap of moving it on turn 3 and 4, or on turn 2 and 3 rather. You play this guy down, and you just kind of like sit him there as a deterrent, and then once you get your gladiator in play, then you can start moving around, taking value trades. Your opponent thought they were safe, that sort of thing. But if you play this guy on your first turn and then you move him the subsequent 2 turns, it's not worth the value that you're getting from shooting. So while this card I think is pretty good in Bologna, probably like a 3, you just have to be careful not to trap yourself.
I'm not giving this card a 3 in Bologna. I'm not giving this card 3 anywhere. This card is like a 1 or 2 maybe. Maybe a 2 in Bologna, maybe. This card is awful, guys. Stay away from it. Draft cards that move by themselves. You don't want things where like your opponent running Elder Harpies into this and drawing a card and killing your guy. This card is bad. Like we're gonna
Sure,
spend
I'm
two.
not gonna argue with you.
We're gonna spend 2 mana to move our card. Like, and we're not cleaving our opponent's base or like killing their ranged units way behind. Like, this card's terrible.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's not good, but
Calder, the
sometimes it
best
just
killer
has
of
those
gods, number one slayer of gods. I've heard it. It's official.
a lot. Heard a lot of times.
Yeah, I've definitely heard it quite a few times.
Scotty's definitely on the plan of Calder's the number 1 Slayer of Gods.
I'm gonna disagree with her.
He basically is just a 2/2 for 2, and that is a bad stat line.
He doesn't even have
in this
haste like
game.
Fire Imp.
Yep. Don't draft Calder.
What are we rating this? Like 1, 2, 1, 1, negative
1.5.
0?
1.5.
I think it's 1. It's better than like the Hive, but not by much.
It's worse than Fire Imp. Or no.
It's worse than Fire Imp.
Yeah, it's worse than. Okay, 1. We'll give Calder a 1.
Kang.
Ah. 2.5.
Yeah, I'm with you. 2, 2.5. Most of the time, guys, if your opponent has enough range to make this good, you've lost the game already. And they probably have a melee to make deal with this anyway.
Yeah, especially. So earlier we were talking about how many more melee units there were in the game than ranged units, which means that the fact that he's immune to ranged is the less useful immunity. If you've got a bunch of other dudes and you can like protect him and clear out their melee units, then like he can run in the back line and do some work. But for this price, you could be getting something so much better at the epic slot, like War Behemoth.
Yeah, no. And his stats are kind of weird too, guys. Like 6 damage is more than you need to smite most range units, and it's not 7 damage for not killing Baboon.
Right.
And at the same time, 4 life is pretty low. So if he was like a 5/5, I'd say he'd probably be better.
I want to see him as a 4/6. Then he's solid. Then
You
he
think a
comes
4/6
down.
might? Yeah.
Yeah. He gets to fight the melee units and the ranged units and not die. For 5 mana, I would play this guy as a 4/6 all day.
But yeah,
as a 6/4,
as an epic slot, guys, which you have to keep in mind for how good these cards are, like a 2.
yeah. Granted, this guy is a lot better than what else do we rated at 2.5? We rated Hyena at 2.5. This guy is much better than Hyena, but it's an epic. So
Yeah,
we need to.
your other
the
epics are
rating
going to be rated way
compared
higher
to
than him.
other cards in the same rarity slot.
The
5.
best Hydra in the game, maybe.
the best card in the game, maybe. Like, we'll just say 5 and move on.
I'd give this a 5. Yeah. I can't think of any legendaries I'd take over this card. Even, I mean, maybe Blight.
Yeah, but Blight's also a 5, right? So that's a choice.
Yeah. Like, and even then, not every time exactly.
Right.
Solid 5, guys. Solid 5. Take this
Yep.
card when you see it most every time.
Mm-hmm.
Marksman.
Yeah. 2. So whenever a friendly god enters the battlefield, he gets an attack. This stacks.
I mean, most of the time, guys.
It's like.
Sorry. Most time in the draft, this is like a 1/2 for 2 mana, guys, and you don't see that god to make it into a 2/2 before it's dead. I'd give this card a 1.
Especially since there aren't a lot of gods that cost 3, unless you're playing Zeus.
I'd rather play Beast Calder.
You'd rather play Caller than Marksman?
I mean,
I probably would too.
maybe not. Maybe Marksman's a bit better against 1/1s from Odin, but this card's not good, guys. Don't draft this. Don't play this. Mercenary.
I don't like him. I like a 2.
Yeah, I agree with your 2 evaluation of him, but I want to say, guys, even a 2 is pretty strong in the legendary slot. The thing about this guy is people underestimate how powerful he is. That's actually a charge, by the way, guys. They wrote Warcry a lot on some of the cards in the start.
Yeah, he has charge.
But he has charge, and there's times when you play this card for 2 mana and you get like a 4/4. And in Odin and in Mayans, it's actually not that uncommon.
But my problem with it is, if you're playing on curve, right? So say you're on the play, so you don't have the mana potion. You start with a 2-drop, you play a 3-drop, and then on turn 4 you play another 2-drop and a mercenary. This guy will be a 4/4 if you have all 3 of your guys still at your stone. And so he's a 4/4 with Warcry for 2, which is great, but the fact that you still have all of your guys at your stone on turn 4 means that you're not moving them up, you're not pressuring your opponent's board, you're not contesting whatever they're doing. So the upshot of getting the 4/4 for 2 with charge is not outweighed by the fact that you haven't pressured your opponent for the first 2 turns, even though you've been playing minions.
So I mean, sometimes you're playing pillars, right, out of Hindu?
Like,
no, I mean
that's such a terrible argument.
This card, it's not a great card, guys. Like I said,
I'm drafting almost every other legendary over this card every time. Granted, he's very powerful compared to like a normal card.
Yeah,
I
think you're probably right.
Does lots of stuff, but in a legendary slot in draft, no. In constructed, it's a different story.
Yeah, I agree. I'm trying to think of who I would draft over this card. I mean, who I would draft under this card.
I mean, the only time that I really like him is like when you're in a late game in arena and you're stalling and your opponent's stalling, you're both just kind of like building up your forces, and you've got like 6 dudes around your core with ranged and whatnot that you don't want to move up because they're gonna die, and you just play like a 6/6 or a 7/7 with charge, and you just go kill one of your opponent's guys. And that's like best case scenario, I feel like.
Yeah, I agree. Namco Warrior.
3.5.
Yeah, I'd say like a 4 in Odin or in Mayan, and then like a 3.5 in everything else. This card's powerful, guys. It'll get you through your deck if it stays alive.
Yeah, you don't even have to have board control for this guy to be good. You just need to be contesting the board for him to be good. As long as you've got anything on board at all, like 1 or 2 dudes, and your opponent has 1 or 2 or 3 dudes, even if they're ahead of you, you can play Naut Warrior, and you can like you don't even need to make good trades. You don't need to trade up anymore. You can just you can even trade down a little bit, and you'll just get cards on your opponent. You'll be sitting there with 8 cards in hand while they're down to 3 on like turn 11, and at that point you just start dropping as much as you possibly can, and you'll just overwhelm them, and they won't be able to make it past your value.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
This card win you a game that way.
It's one of the best lightning rods for removal too. So like I said, I think like a 3.5, 3 in most decks. Odin, Mayan, definitely a 4.
You do have to be a little bit careful that you don't draw too many cards.
Yeah,
if you're playing by it.
I've watched people kill themselves with this card, guys, in arena more times than I would like to admit. Where they just, they had the board, but I was able to hold on to my side of the board. They just drew through their whole deck, and we waited until they died. You know, we actually chased down a couple of their minions and made them force draw.
And that's only a problem, I would say, if you're playing Mayan. That's when you need to worry about it, because if you're playing a deck that isn't generating massive amounts of tokens, and you're just drawing 1 card for every card that you play, it's basically every card gets the Elder Harpy effect. You're not going to be able to go through your deck fast enough just because of the mana involved. So it's not too much of an issue. It's when you have all those zombies. Like if you just bladed your opponent, you've got 6 zombies on board, and you play Naut Warrior, and then they go
Rain of Arrows.
Or Rain of Arrows, or Rushing Thunder, or any mass removal spell. Suddenly you're overdrawing, you're burning cards on top of your deck, you're losing value, your deck's getting lighter. That can be a problem.